We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 57b. On the previous summit, Rav Yosef said that listim mizuyin, that's armed robbers, they're considered to be like ganovim, and a ganav pays kefil. And the Gemara is now asking from a brisa. The brisa says, Lo imamrit b'shomer chinam shekein mishalim tashlumei kefil. Just because you say it by shomer chinam, where the payment is a payment of kefil, tomer b'shomer sacher she'enu mishalim tashlumei kefil. You don't necessarily say that by a shomer sacher, which doesn't pay kefil. Rashi says, Lo imamrit masnisahi. This is some brisa, v'lo yadana hechatan. You don't know the exact context of the brisa, but the point over here is that the brisa seems to be saying that shomer sacher, in a certain sense, is less than shomer chinam, because it's never going to come to a situation of kefil. And so the Gemara now asks on Rav Yosef, V'isal kadaitach listim mizuyin ganav. Now, if you're going to say that listim mizuyin, armed robbers, is considered to be a ganav, so it's not true. Nimtza b'shomer sacher mishalim tashlumei kefil. You could have a case of a shomer sacher paying kefil, b'toin tainas listim mizuyin. Let's say the shomer sacher claims that it was stolen from him by armed robbers. He takes a false oath about that. It turns out that he's lying. He's going to pay kefil in that case. And the Gemara says to that, Amar Lei, sort of Yosef responds, he says to him, Hachi Kamar, no, this is what it means to say in this brisa. It just means, Lo imamrit b'shomer chinam, shekein mishalim tashlumei kefil b'chol ta'anosav. When it comes to shomer chinam, he pays kefil in all of his claims. Tomer b'shomer sacher, whereas by a shomer sacher, she'enu mishalim tashlumei kefil, he doesn't pay kefil, ella, except in the following case, b'toin tainas listim mizuyin, only in the case of toin tainas listim mizuyin, again, when he makes that claim that it was taken from him by armed robbers. And Rashi explains, B'chol ta'anos of a shomer chinam pays kefil in all of his claims, kilomar kol ta'anos shal yedei ganav, bein mizuyin uvein she'ena mizuyin, meaning all ganav claims, whether armed or unarmed, to a shomer chinam, pater b'geneva v'yaveda, because the shomer chinam is trying to exempt himself through a claim of geneva v'yaveda. Hilkach kishenim sashakar mishalim kefil, therefore, if it turns out that that claim is a lie, he's going to pay kefil. Tomer b'shomer sacher, whereas by a shomer sacher, she'eno mishalim kefil, b'tainas ganav, she'eno mizuyin, if he makes a claim of ganav that's not armed, he's not going to pay kefil. Even if it turns out that he has the item, because that claim isn't one that can exempt him from paying the keren. And the Gemara continues, Esvei, we have another question from a brisa. This is also a question on the idea that listim mizuyin is considered to be a ganav. V'nishbar omeis, it says, let's say it injures itself, it breaks a limb, or it dies. Ainli ela shavura umeisa. I only know that this pasuk, this is talking about a shoel. It's saying a shoel is responsible for everything, even an ones, even an accident like nishbar omeis. I only know if it breaks a limb or it dies. Geneva v'yaveda minayna. How do I know that a shoel is responsible for geneva v'yaveda? And so the brisa says, Amr kal v'chomer. We can make the following kal v'chomer. Uma shomer sacher shepater bo shvura mesa v'shomer sacher, who's pater when you have an onus like shvura and mesa. Chayev b'geneva v'yaveda, but the shomer sacher is chayev in geneva v'yaveda. Shoel shechayev v'shvura mesa, so a shoel which is chayev in shvura mesa and onsim and accidents, eno din shechayev b'geneva v'yaveda. Most certainly a shoel should be chayev in geneva v'yaveda. V'zeu kal v'chomer she'en alav teshuva. The brisa says this is a kal v'chomer that you cannot refute. And the Gemara says, V'isal kadaitach listim mizuyin ganav. Now, if you're going to think that listim mizuyin, that armed robbers is considered to be a ganav, amayin olav teshuva, what do you mean that there's no refutation? We could come up with a refutation as follows. Ikol mifrich, you can refute it as follows. Ma'ala shomer sacher shekein mishalim tashlumei kefil, b'toin tainas listim mizuyin. A shomer sacher has a certain strength that he can end up paying kefil if he makes a claim of armed robbery that ends up being false. That doesn't apply, obviously, to a shoel, because a shoel is going to be responsible to pay for the keren in that case. But the Gemara says to that, Amarle said back to him, Kasavar Haitana, the Tana of this brisa holds, Karna below Shua, that if you have to pay the principal without taking an oath, meaning if a shoel were to say listim mizuyin, he's responsible. He would then have to pay the keren, and he would take no oath. That's actually adifa, that's greater, that's considered stricter, mikfela b'shvua, from having to pay kefil with an oath. That already actually is a more lenient position. As Rashi says, Karna below Shua, adifa mikfela b'shvua, shoel adif, the shoel is considered stricter, shemischaye b'shvura mesa, he has to pay for shvura mesa. Below shum shvua sheker, without any option, so to speak, of taking a false oath, he can't get out of it. Mishomer sacher, whereas a shomer sacher, shepater alein, he could be completely pater. V'afa pishayesh b'shomer sacher kefil b'toin tainas listim mizuyin. Now, even though there could come to a scenario of kefil by this shomer sacher when he makes this claim, ein zeh chomer, that's not a stringency. To kefil eino b'shomer not sheyishava l'sheker shenignevo haimenu, because the kefil only applies dies after he takes the false oath that it was stolen. V'achar kach bo edim, and then edim come. But Perek Meruba, that's what we say in Perek Meruba, hilkach kenosa misham shavuhu, therefore the real fine is because of the oath, the kanse rachmana, that's what the Torah is imposing that fine because of the false oath. That doesn't make it stricter. By a shomer sachar, a shoel is still considered to be stricter. And the Gemara continues, Lema Messiah, let's say that the following brisa supports Rav Yosef's opinion that listim mezuyin is considered to be a ganav. The brisa says, Hasocher porah mechaver, if somebody rents a cow from his friend, v'nignava, and it's stolen. V'yamar halo hareini mishalem v'eini nishpa, and then the socher says, I don't want to swear, I'd rather just pay for it. V'yachar kach nimtza ganav, and then after that they actually find the ganav, they found the person who stole it. Mishalem tashlume kefil l'socher, so then the ganav pays kefil like a ganav is supposed to pay, but he pays it to the socher because the socher is already reimbursed the person that he rented it from. And so the Gemara now tries to understand this brisa. Savrua Reb Yehuda damar socher kenose socher dami. Right now we think that this brisa follows Reb Yehuda's opinion that a socher is like a nose socher, meaning a socher is like a shomer socher. A shomer socher is responsible for geneva. Umidikatani v'amar hareini mishalim v'eini nishva. Now from the fact that the brisa says that the person is volunteering to pay, I want to pay and I don't want to swear, mechlal di'iboy potter le'nafshei b'shvu. It sounds like he could have taken an oath and been exempt. Now, how could a shomer sacher take an oath on geneva and be exempt? A shomer sacher is responsible for geneva. So, heichidami. So, what's the case? It must be kegon de katoin tainas listim mezuyin. It must be the cases where he's making a claim of armed robbery, and that would exempt a shomer sacher. So that exempts a socher as well. The katani, and then it says v'achar kach nimtza haganav. It says then the ganav is found, meaning the listim mezuyin are found. Mishalim tashlume kefil socher. It says that the double payment is made to the socher. Shma mino listim mezuyin ganav. So you see from this brisa that listim mezuyin is considered to be a ganav. The Gemara says Amri. They answer to that. They say not necessarily the case at all. Misaver Reb Yehuda, who says this brisa follows Reb Yehuda. Damer socher kanose socher dami. That says a socher is like a shomer socher. Dilma Rabbi Meir svirle. Maybe this brisa holds like Rabbi Meir. Damer socher kashomer chinam dami. That says a socher is like a shomer chinam. And then you understand the brisa kapshuto. It simply means the shomer chinam could have gotten out of it by swearing it was stolen, and instead he decided to pay because again a socher is just like a shomer chinam according to Rabbi Meir. Iboy same, or if you want, I could say another answer. Kidamachlif Rabba Baravua. Maybe it does follow Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabba Baravua reversed the opinions of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. V'tani socher ketzer mishalim. He learned it as follows: socher, a socher, how does he pay? Rabbi Meir omer kashomer sacher. Rabbi Meir is the one that says that he's like a shomer sacher, and Rabbi Yehuda omer kashomer chinam, and Rabbi Yehuda says like a shomer chinam. So then the brisa could be Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda might hold shomer chinam. And the Gemara gives another answer. Rabbi Zera Amar Rabbi Zera says hacha b'may askin. And here, what is the case? Meaning, in this brisa, what is the situation? Maybe it really is a case of listim mezuyin, but it still wouldn't prove that listim mezuyin is a ganav, because it could be betoin tainas listim mezuyin. It could be that the person made the claim that there was armed robbers. That was the claim, and that really would have exempted the individual, but he didn't take the exemption. Instead, he paid. V'nimtzo listim she'ena mezuyin. Then it turned out that it wasn't in fact robbed. There were robbers, but they were unarmed robbers. It was regular ganav who's going to pay the kefil, and that's why kefil is being paid. And Rashi explains, Rabbi Zera Amar Liolam Kashomer Sacher Dami. Again, really, it could be that the socher is like a shomer sacher. V'afilu achi lo tesai. It's still not a proof in terms of listim mezuyin being a ganav. The hayde katani kefil belistim she'eno mezuyin kamar. When it says that they pay kefil, that's assuming the robbers were not armed. V'katani reisha eno nishva mechlal diboy pater nafshin. When in the beginning of the brisa it said that he doesn't swear as though he could have sworn and exempted himself. But my askin and betoyin tainas listim mezuyin. That's talking where the claim being made was that they were armed robbers. Hilkach iboy iftar. Therefore, he could have actually exempted himself with that claim. But when it turns out that the ganav is found, nimtza she'ena mezuyin, it turned out he wasn't armed. Ubar kefilu, and therefore he pays kefil. And therefore, again, it could very well be that by listim mezuyin, maybe listim mezuyin is not considered to be a ganav, yet we can still reconcile this brisa. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Nafla lagin, if the animal falls into the garden v'nenis and derives benefit, mishalemis mashenenis, so then the owner has to pay the benefit that was derived. You don't have to pay for the damages in this case, because it's considered to be an accident, but you do have to pay for the benefit that was derived. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav says, B'nechvata. We're talking over here where it falls upon the fruits, and the fruits essentially soften the injury to the animal. That's the benefit that we are talking about. Rashi says, Amar Rav says, Katani Mashenenis Mishalemes, when we say that you have to pay for the benefit that the animal derived, we're talking about again where it fell upon the crops. Shikiosan bekarka v'fsidam, it destroyed the crops. V'hinenis, but there was a benefit shelo laksami karka, that the animal ended up not getting injured from the earth. That is exactly what we're talking about in the Mishnah. But the Gemara asks, Aval achla, but then what are you saying? Let's say the animal would have eaten the fruits. Afilu mashenenis eina mishalemes, then you're saying you don't even pay the benefit. That doesn't make any sense. As Rashi says, Uparchina aval achla afilu mashenenis lo mishalemes bitmiya. Does that make sense to say that if it eats the fruit, then you're not going to pay for the benefit? And the Gemara suggests, Leima Rav l'taimi, let us suggest that Rav is following his reasoning. Because Rav said in a different context that we apply the rule that the animal should not have eaten. Now Rashi explains, Leima Rav l'taimi de Omar, gabi hichnes peiros of l'chatzer chaver shelo brishos. The case we had earlier was, a person puts his fruits into his friend's chatzer, he has no permission to put his fruits there. B'shor shanagai chazapara, that was in Perek Shor shanagai chazapara. To katani huzka behem, and then we said, it says over there that huzka behem behema shel balabayis. Let's say the animal of the owner of the chatzer is injured by the fruits, so chayiv balapeiros, and then the owner of the fruits is going to be chayiv for the damage that his fruits did to this animal, because he brought these fruits in with no permission. Now on that case, v'amar Rav, so Rav said on that case, we're talking about, let's say the animal slipped on the fruits. So if the animal slipped on the fruits which should not have been there, the owner of the fruits is responsible for that damage. But Rav said, aval achla v'triza potter, but let's say the animal ate, and through the eating it ends up causing an injury, so then potter amachnes, then the person who brought in the fruits is potter, to have because the animal just shouldn't have eaten it. So therefore, let's apply that logic here as well. V'hachanam, here also, amar bal habehema b'yiridasa anusahi, the person who owns the animal can say that the animal fell in there, that's an onus, sharei nafla just fell. Uvachilasan, in terms of eating, hayala shelo tochal, so it shouldn't have eaten. Umani yachal asos, what could I do? I should be potter because my animal should not have eaten. Let's assume that that's the same reasoning over here. The Gemara says, Amri, they said to this, Hachi Hashta, what kind of comparison are you making? It's completely the opposite. Amor da'amar Rav, when Rav said that was Hassam, that was over there, Hayala shelo tochal, he said that the animal shouldn't have eaten. Heichad di'itzakahi, that's when the animal is the one being injured by eating. Dematzi amarle mari depir, so the owner of the fruits can say, Lo mishalamna hayala shelo tochal, the owner of the fruits can say, I'm not paying you anything, your animal should not have eaten that fruit. And therefore, since the animal ate it, it's essentially the other person is not responsible for the damage. But here we're talking about the opposite situation. Here we're talking about where the animal is eating and damaging the owner of the property, the owner of the fruits. Would we say that if it's damaging someone else and now you want to exempt the owner from payment, there we're going to say to exempt from payment? That doesn't make sense. And so the Gemara says Ella rather, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Ches Amud Aleph.